Welcome back, everybody. Everybody that's stuck around. We appreciate you guys tuning in to episode 35 of the Phenomenal Fan Podcast. Football is back. We're going to get into it. We're so excited for the NFL season. College football starts tonight as we record this episode. Official, real, meaningful college football. We're going to be going over the big matchups of the weekend, some NFL news, and some fantasy football insight because that's some stuff that we might want to get into. So stick around until the end to get some insight on all the different positions that you want to find some value in your upcoming or potential already past fantasy football drafts. So thank you guys for tuning into episode 35 and let's get into it.
The Phenomenal Fan Podcast, a podcast by the fan, for the fan.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the first football episode, like football season episode of the Phenomenal Fan Podcast. So excited about the football season. So excited. I mean, can't even describe how excited I am. College football, NFL, the fall, the seasonal changes, the weather. I love it, man. I love it. That's that Dwayne Wade meme. I love it. I love it. Today is September 1st. September 1st, 2022. Some would say it's the first official day of fall. I am not entirely sure if that's true, only because as I look at the weather on my phone, it's got the high for today at 93 degrees. Now, if we're talking fall, I'm not seeing anything in the 90s. I'm probably barely seeing stuff in the 80s. So I get it. It's September, right? The girlfriend goes in. She says, "Hey, babe, we need to get all the fall stuff out." Okay, that's fine. But I'm gonna need it to start cooling down a little bit. Let's just cool down, right? September 1st. Is it the first day of fall? Is it not the first day of fall? I think if I went on Google right now and said first day of fall 2022, it says Thursday, September 22nd. The first day of fall, according to Google, is Thursday, September 22nd. You tell me, is that too early or too late, the first day of fall? I think it all depends on the weather. Because if it's colder, it's starting to get colder, for some reason, I don't know why it would get colder in September, but let's say it starts to get colder in September, I'm fine calling it first day of fall. But Thursday, September 22nd, I don't know. Maybe it's still 90 degrees that day. Then maybe that's too early. I don't know. I don't know. Either way, man, it's football season. And tonight, September 1st, we got some football games, some meaningful college football games. 3 top 25 teams play tonight. Oklahoma State, number 12, Pittsburgh, number 17, and Wake Forest at 22. Yes, those are the only 3. But there's a lot of big programs playing tonight. Minnesota, Missouri, Purdue, Penn State, uh Tennessee plays tonight. West Virginia is playing Pitt. So I mean, good football games. I mean, Penn State Purdue, like it's a big time Big 10 matchup. So fired up about that. Absolutely love this slate. Love this calendar look here. And that's just tonight. That's just tonight. Because this Saturday, oh boy. By the way, tomorrow, Friday, Michigan State plays Western Michigan. Michigan State's 15th ranked in the country. Saturday, everybody plays. And most teams play kind of a garbage can game, right? Alabama's playing Utah State. Roll Tide, baby. In case you guys didn't know, listening to this podcast, I'm sorry, but I am an Alabama fan. Texas A&M plays Sam Houston. Vomit. Michigan plays Colorado State. Vomit. Iowa plays South Dakota State. Puke in my mouth. UCLA plays Bowling Green. Oklahoma plays UTEP. Right, so just some trash games. But there are some good ones. There's some really good ones. Starting off with a top 25 matchup, number 23 Cincinnati is playing number 19 Arkansas in Arkansas. That's a top 25 matchup featuring a team that was in the college football playoff last year. Love it. Love it. Um why am I missing the other ones? There was another top 25 matchup besides the big one of the night. Why don't I sort it? Oh yeah, Cincinnati and Arkansas, 23 versus 19. Oregon and Georgia, 11 versus a 3. Georgia is not at home, but they're playing at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. So, I mean, let's be real. That's going to be pretty much a home game for them. Number 3 ranked team Georgia is playing number 11 ranked Oregon. Those are these see the crazy thing is these preseason rankings, they don't mean a lot. They mean something because you can tell what teams are good. You can say, okay, well, Cincinnati they feel clearly is good enough to be a top 25 team. Georgia and Oregon's ranked at 11 coming into this year. If they beat Georgia, they jump into the top 3. I mean, like literally they go from 11 to probably 3. So, Oregon Georgia on Saturday, Chick-fil-A kickoff game. Georgia 17-point favorites over Oregon. Jeez, man. That's a big, big, big number. And then the biggest game of the night or of the entire day is in the evening, Notre Dame versus Ohio State. Notre Dame is ranked 5th. Ohio State is ranked 2nd. Very rarely do you see a game that has college football playoff implications in week 1. If Notre Dame beats Ohio State, they will jump to number 2, potentially number 1, depending on how Alabama plays. If Ohio State beats Notre Dame, they could also potentially jump to number 1. And if they continue the rest of the year, go undefeated and win the Big 10, they will probably be the 1 seed. Now, Notre Dame's schedule this year, I don't want to say it's tough because it's not tough, but it is tough, if that makes sense. Like it's not like this gauntlet you can't win or go undefeated. But after Ohio State, they play Marshall. That should be a win. They play Cal. That should be a win. They play North Carolina. That should be a win. They play BYU, who's ranked 25th coming into the week 1. That should probably be a win. Stanford win, UNLV win, Syracuse probably a win. Then they got Clemson, who's preseason number 4. That's going to be a ball game. Navy probably a win, Boston College probably a win, and then they got 14th ranked USC. So right now on their schedule, they have 4 top 25 games. That will of course be subject to change with wins and losses and everything else. But if I am Notre Dame, I don't see this game as a must win because theoretically they could lose this game, probably drop right to like 8, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in the rankings. And then if they win out and they win the ACC, I think because they're technically affiliated with ACC for football, then you're looking at a college football playoff berth. But as it stands, that game is going to be just so good. Just so good. Notre Dame and Ohio State, week 1. What did we do to deserve that? In a good way, I mean. It's usually that statement's usually reserved for bad things, but it's not a bad thing. So fired up about it. In NFL news, moving on. College football is going to be awesome. NFL is not starting this weekend. It's going to be firing up next week. In NFL news, the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson have agreed on a 5-year extension that includes 165 million guaranteed cash money. Russell Wilson is 33 right now, and he'll be under contract through the 2028 season. That would make him 30. That's in 6 years from now. That would make him 39. The extension for Russell Wilson, who has 2 years remaining on his previous contract, has an average salary of 49 million a year. After he makes 24 this year, 27 next year, and then 49 million every year for 5 years after that. I mean, I like it. I am a Broncos fan. I'm just concerned about the age. 33 now signed to a 5-year extension. I know quarterbacks are different, but Russell Wilson, his game is based on his ability to move around in the pocket, to throw on the run, to be an athlete. And that athleticism starts to dwindle in your late 30s. So at 33 now, he looks like he's in phenomenal shape. I'm sure he is going to be a great player this year. 34 next year, 35. Then you start getting 36. I wouldn't be surprised to see a slight adjustment in his style of play. 37. That's getting up there. 38. That's old. And then he's going to have 38 and 39. I just don't know if there's going to be the production, a $49 million a year production at age 38 and 39 for Russell Wilson. That being said, they got to lock the guy up. You have to give him an extension, and I'm sure he didn't want a 2-year extension. So 5 years for Russell Wilson, 245 million on top of the 2-year contract he has going. Good for the Denver Broncos. That's super exciting. Super exciting, man. I'm a Broncos fan. I'm looking forward to it. I try to keep it relatively unbiased, but you know, Broncos have a new ownership group. They're a good team. They're going to be a good team this year. They should find themselves in the playoffs at some point. Okay? So that's it pretty much for NFL news. Uh Tua Tagovailoa was voted team captain on the Dolphins. That's pretty cool. And that's pretty much it, man. I mean, everybody's made the rosters that you'd expect to make rosters. A couple guys have been cut, but for the most part, man, it's gonna be a good year in the NFL. Super excited for that. But that coverage will start to spike next week in our episodes. Okay. So that being said, have the news covered, have college football covered. Baseball, quickly to touch on, is getting into the home stretch. The Dodgers are amazing. The Mets are really good. The Braves are really good. The Yankees are falling apart. The Astros are amazing. The White Sox are a joke. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think realistically there are 4 teams that could win the World Series this year: Dodgers, Braves, Mets, and Astros in the American League. I would throw the Yankees in there as a fifth. Outside of that in the American League, realistically, there's not much that's gonna be happening. The Rays, always sneaky, but let's be real. And I mean, yeah, Mets, Braves, Cardinals are solid, but that's it for baseball. We don't have to spend too much time on it. I love baseball. That's my first sport, my first love, but come on, it's football time. So, now it's time to get into our fantasy rankings. Not necessarily rankings. Our fantasy tips. We wanted to give fantasy tips for some players that will have for some players that will have value in later rounds, guys that may not get picked up, guys that are being undervalued, that we feel have more value. And we're going to go through all the positions. We're not going to spend too much time on defense, on kickers, things like that, right? Primary quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And we'll go in that order. The complete 2022 quarterback point scoring projections, well, all the projections are out from ESPN. Not a surprise to see a lot of the guys at the top of the list to be at the top of the list. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Dak, Brady, Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Burrow, Matt Stafford. You get the point. Okay. But going down this list here, there's a few guys that you should keep your eye on if you're one of those guys that loads up. Okay. Just if you're one of those guys that just loads up on running backs and wide receivers in your fantasy drafts. Okay. And you wait for a QB and you wait for a QB and you wait for a QB. If you wait till like one of the last rounds to take a quarterback, take Jameis Winston. He had 117 fantasy points last year. And when he got hurt, he had 14 touchdowns and 3 picks. This year, he's projected to basically double that at 244. That's great production from a quarterback. It's great production. And I also want to make this clear. This isn't a guarantee. Nobody knows that these guys are going to be good or not. Nobody knows if guys are going to get hurt. Nobody knows anything because the future is unknown. But this is a value guy. Jameis Winston, value. Backup guy, right? Going down the list even further. At 24, they have Matt Ryan of the Colts. He had 222 fantasy points last year on a bad, 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 bad Falcons team. Now, the Colts are better. Their offensive line is way better. The running back is way better. And they have weapons on offense to catch the football. So, again, if you're waiting late rounds for a quarterback, Matt Ryan is an excellent pickup. And again, to be clear, this is fantasy late round value, guys, to pick up in your fantasy drafts when he's not picking up, basically. When these guys aren't uh when they're available, when you filled up your roster already, or you're waiting to the late rounds. Okay, so those are the guys in the quarterback position I would keep an eye on. Right? The rest of the guys you would like to prioritize. But ultimately, if you're a guy, like I said, who just waits and waits and waits and waits and waits, and then you check and all these other quarterbacks are gone, and now you're stuck with looking at guys like Trevor Lawrence, to Daniel Jones, like forget those guys. They're not going to be ranked as high as Jameis Winston, which is stupid. Take Jameis or take Matt Ryan over Tua, over Trevor Lawrence, over even Trey Lance. Like take him over a lot of these guys. Seriously. That's just that's just where I'd put it. In the running back position, again, everybody knows the top guys that are going to go off the board first. Jonathan Taylor, McCaffrey, Eckler, Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook. The list goes on and on. But there's a couple guys in the running back category that you need to keep your eye on in a good way and a bad way. First guy is DeAndre Swift. Okay. DeAndre Swift is a really good running back, but don't get suckered into it. Don't. There's about a dozen other running backs available in your fantasy draft that I would probably try to prioritize over DeAndre Swift. I would do that. That's me personally. Last year, he had 5 rushing touchdowns, 2 receiving touchdowns. He had 62 catches for 452 yards, and he had 151 carries for 617 yards. I don't know how many games he played, but why is he projected more points this year than he was last year? It's the same exact team. In fact, the Lions, I mean, I guess they might have gotten a little bit better, but not really. And DeAndre Swift, year in and year out, is projected to be this top 10 fantasy running back. And he just never is. He just never is. Never. So don't take him in the first 3 or 4 rounds. Don't. He's not bad. He's not a bad flex guy. He's not a bad bench RB1, but he should not be your RB1. Maybe your RB2 if you have a really good RB1. Problem is he's going to go off the board because some idiot is going to take DeAndre Swift. I don't think he's a horrible player. I just don't think he should be the 9th ranked fantasy running back. When you go down this list, Aaron Jones needs to go before DeAndre Swift. James Conner needs to go before DeAndre Swift. Saquon Barkley needs to go before DeAndre Swift. So don't fall into the DeAndre Swift trap. Everybody does. Every year, one guy does, and it's stupid. Okay? Now, on the flip side, these are some guys that are not ranked very high in the running back position, but they have a lot more value than what they are currently ranked at. Okay? On ESPN's rankings, they have Devin Singletary ranked as the number 25 running back in the NFL on what will be potentially the number 1 offense in the NFL. Explain that to me. If he's the starting running back for the Buffalo Bills, how is Devin Singletary going to be the 25th ranked running back? I get Josh Allen's going to throw the ball a ton. I totally get it, man. Makes a lot of sense. But Devin Singletary had 7 rushing touchdowns last year. He had 870 rushing yards, 228 receiving yards. That's over 1,000 all-purpose yards for Devin Singletary. And he's the 25th ranked running back? Look at some of the other guys that are above him. You're going to take Breece Hall of the New York Jets at 20 over Devin Singletary. Give me a break. Devin Singletary has the potential this year. Devin Singletary has the potential to be a legit RB1, even potentially a top 10 fantasy running back this year. Now, would I take him in the first round? No. Would I take him in the second round? Maybe. But if he's there in the third or fourth round, take him. Please take him. I honestly might take him over DeAndre Swift, if I'm being honest. I might. Seriously. Going further down this list, another running back with a ton of value that's not ranked very high on a lot of fantasy boards is Damian Harris from the Patriots. Why? Why? Mac Jones is garbage. He literally can't throw the ball. Damian Harris had almost had 1,000 rushing yards last year with 15 touchdowns. And this year he's just projected for 10. Why? He is a goal line hawk on an offense that does not prioritize throwing the football. And yeah, he might split reps with yeah, that's who it is. He might split reps with Ramondre Stevenson. Who cares? He's going to be a third down back. He's going to be a touchdown machine. He had over 200 fantasy points last year. Dude, if Damian Harris is around in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, somewhere in there, you've already got your starting running back, and you maybe are able to pick out a nice RB2. Damian Harris has so much value in the flex position. So much value. It's a touchdown machine. Machine. The third running back that everybody needs to be paying attention to is Cordero Patterson. Okay? That guy's last year, it wasn't a fluke. He had 6 rushing touchdowns. Okay. He had 5 receiving touchdowns. He had 618 rushing yards, 548 receiving yards. In a PPR league, he had 52 catches last year for 548, 234 fantasy points. Pretty sure he finished top 5 as an overall running back. In an offense that's going to feature either a rookie quarterback or a veteran quarterback that can't really throw the ball that well. What's he going to do? Check it down and hand it off. What does that mean? Cordero Patterson, Cordero Patterson, Cordero Patterson. And the last running back we wanted to touch on before we get into wide receivers. The last running back that has a ton of value with a low rank is Rashad Penny on the Seahawks. Yeah, last year he had 6 rushing touchdowns, 121 fantasy points, only had 6 catches. Guess what? He's the starter. Draft him. Draft him. I'm not telling you to draft him in round 1, round 2, round 3. Probably not round 5 or 6 or even 7 in some cases. But if he's still lingering around and you have a few bench spots open, like he should be one of the first guys you find on the bench, if not a flex guy. He's starting in an offense that has Geno Smith at quarterback. Guess what? Rashad Penny's going to get a lot of touches. A lot of touches. I'm just saying, guys. I'm just saying. Think about it. Consider it. That's our running back board, and those are guys that we think are going to have a ton of value. Okay? Now, at the wide receiver, not receiver, at the wide receiver position, everybody knows who's going to be at the top of the board. Again, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, Debo, Stephon, CD, Tyreek, Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, Mike Evans. You get it, right? There's a bit of a drop off this year in the wide receiver production in the ESPN rankings, right? You go from Keenan Allen at 9, T. Higgins at 10, Mike Evans at 11, DJ Moore 12, Michael Pittman at 13, who had a good year last year, and then it kind of falls off, in my opinion. AJ Brown, he'll be okay. Terry McLaurin, he'll be okay. Deontay Johnson with either a rookie quarterback or Mitch Trubisky, he'll be okay. Jalen Waddle, I mean, he'll be okay, but he's not the primary guy. Mike Williams, pretty solid. Brandon Cooks, okay. Hollywood Brown, uh, DK, Jerry Judy. Hold on. Hold on. We'll get to those guys. But my point is, if you're going to get a good productive wide receiver, I would try to get it early. Okay? Like I'm talking like probably your first or second pick, depending on where you're drafting, right? If you're a late round, first round pick, like you're the in a 10-man league, you're the 8, 9, or 10. 12-man league, you're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I would consider taking a receiver. In fact, I mean, honestly, as high as 4 or 5 in some cases. If, these guys are available early round 2, a lot of these guys down into Mike Evans territory or Pittman, I would think about it. But there's 2 receivers in the top 25 that I think should be ranked higher. There's 2 receivers in ESPN's top 25 that have a ton of value. The first one and the second one are both on the Broncos, but the first one is Jerry Jeudy. Okay? Jerry Jeudy has had god awful quarterbacks to deal with since he's been in the league. Guys like Brett Rippon, Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater, dog shit, dog shit, dog shit. And now he's got Russell Wilson, and he's the best route runner in the NFL, arguably. Uh, he's going to go off. He's projected for 6 touchdowns this year. I bet you he gets double digits. I bet he gets 10 touchdowns this year. And the other thing about Jerry Jeudy that almost nobody talks about, of course, the route running's great, but he's so fast. His big play ability is up there with Tyreek in the league. Just explosiveness. Now he's going to be open a lot more, and he's going to get fed the ball a lot more. Because why? The Broncos are deeper. Russell Wilson's a monster, and Jerry Jeudy's going to go off. So if you can find Jerry Jeudy available in rounds 3, 4, 5, I would do that. The next guy on the list, another receiver in Denver that has a ton of value in your fantasy drafts that I would try to consider taking earlier than you might have, is Courtland Sutton. Same story as Jerry Jeudy. Has had literally he- he's had JV quarterbacks playing quarterback for him, throwing him passes since he's been on the Broncos. He's so big. He's a defensive nightmare to cover. And he's coming off of an injury where it's his first full healthy year. With, oh, by the way, Russell Wilson throwing him passes. He's going to get a ton of touches. He's going to get a lot of red zone targets. I would try to take Courtland Sutton earlier rather than later. Or you see him, you're 5 picks away, and he's 10 ranking spots back, and you're like, well, I might be able to get him on the next turn. No, take him. I would try to find Courtland Sutton on your roster if possible. Going down this list again, okay? A guy that dropped far, far on the list is Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow is a receiver that could potentially win somebody their fantasy league this year. Seriously. He had 259 fantasy points. I think he finished top 5 as a fantasy wide receiver. He had 128 targets for 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. Oh, L Devontae Adams is in Vegas now. Hunter Renfro's not going to see the ball. Opposite. Wrong. More. More. Why? Devontae Adams is going to be double teamed. Everybody, safety's going to come over. If they both these guys are split out wide, or Renfro is lined up in the slot and Devontae Adams is out wide, and there's a safety and he's got to pick one or the other, he's going with Devontae Adams. Who does that leave open? Hunter Renfro. Who does Derek Carr know best? Hunter Renfro. Who runs, by the way, really good fucking routes? Hunter Renfro. I'm not telling you to take him first or second round, but again, if he's available in rounds 4, 5, 6, you have a wide receiver 2 position open. I would consider taking Hunter Renfro over maybe some of the other guys that are ranked higher than him on the draft board. The next guy up, Juju Smith-Schuster. Okay. Last year, didn't have a touchdown. Only had 15 catches. He was hurt. He's dealing with old man Big Ben. He's had some flashes of greatness. Juju could potentially be the best receiver on the Chiefs this year. Who's throwing him passes? Oh, that's right. Patrick Mahomes. In an offense that's got ton of weapons, ton of speed. Travis Kelce. ESPN's got him projected for 7 touchdowns. I could easily see Juju Smith-Schuster getting into double digits this year. Very easily. Very, very easily. Next guy on the list. All reliable. It's a name that gets brushed under the rug every single year. Doesn't get a ton of notoriety. And every year the guy shows up and just puts up points for your fantasy team. And his name is Adam Thielen. Guess what? Adam Thielen, 10 touchdowns last year. Had 726 yards. I mean, it's not a great, amazing year. I think he was probably bouncing off on and off the injured list. You know, going through his career. 2018, 9 touchdowns, 1,300 receiving yards. 2019, must have been hurt, only had 418 yards, 6 touchdowns. 2020, how about 925 receiving yards, 108 targets, 14 touchdowns. Last year, 726 for 10 touchdowns. The guy is a red zone target in an offense that is very weaponized. Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook. Kirk Cousins looks for Adam Thielen in the red zone. He looks for Thielen. That's why I had 10 touchdowns last year. That's why I had 14 the year before that. Thielen very easily could get into double digits for touchdowns against this year. He could very easily get into double digits again with touchdowns. Get a little older. I get it. Doesn't matter. Get him on your roster. Now, of course, by the way, all these guys, it's not possible to have every one of these dudes on your roster, of course, but it does matter. I'm looking for a guy here. I apologize. I must have passed him because there's no way. Okay, there he is. Last wide receiver I wanted to touch on out of the group that's going to have a ton of value this year. Rams wide receiver Allen Robinson. Coming over from Chicago, has just had horrible, 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 horrible quarterbacks. No offense to those guys, man, but it's a huge upgrade to Matt Stafford. And when Matt Stafford's not throwing it to Cooper Cup, he's going to be throwing it to Allen Robinson. ESPN has him for 6 touchdowns. I could, like, I don't even think it'd be hard for him to get 12 touchdowns this year. I think it'd be easy. Try to find Allen Robinson on your team if you can, because he's going to be pretty solid. Going to be pretty solid. Tight end is the last position we'll get into, and there's only a couple guys that I wanted to touch on here. Okay. Dawson Knox is going to have a lot of value in Buffalo. Again, it's a high powered offense. Josh Allen needs a more, reliable red zone target. Diggs is great. Gabriel Davis is solid, but I'm talking like big man, big presence. Dawson Knox. Keep an eye out. Noah Fant on the Seahawks got traded over from the Broncos in that Russell Wilson trade. Geno or Drew Lock, whoever's throwing the football in Seattle throughout the season, they're going to be looking for a big body to just lob it up to. That's Noah Fant. The last guy wanted to keep an eye on for everybody on the flip side of that trade. Last tight end to keep an eye on is Albert Okuwebanam. That's how you say it, by the way. Actually, I think that's a little over enunciating. Albert Okuwebanam, I think is how you say it. Alberto, Broncos tight end. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams. Who's gonna be the tight end? Albert O. Heads up. Guy's gonna get fucking targets, man. Again, if you're one of those guys and you just load it up on running backs and wide receivers, just load it up, and then you get into the later rounds and you're like, oh my God, I don't have a tight end. Take Albert O if he's there. He's gonna be good. He's gonna be really good. That's all I'm saying, man. That's all I am saying. So that covers all the positions. Okay. Defense and special teams, not going to get into it. I mean, if you want to get into kickers, Tyler Bass has some value, but it's just because the Bills are going to score a lot of points. I mean, the rest of these guys are just whatever. But that's it, man. We're excited for football season. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed those fantasy tips, man. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this episode 35. Football season is here. It's back. And by the way, if you're planning on going to any football games or buying tickets and you want to save a little bit of money, if you download SeatGeek, ticket buying application, just like Ticketmaster or any other one, SeatGeek sells tickets to anything. And you haven't bought it, you haven't used the app before, you download the app, and on your first purchase, you use the code PHENOM Fan, one word, PHENOM Phenom Fan, one word. You get $20 off your first order. So just do it. I mean, like, just do it. Just do it. Either way, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode 35. Football's back. Could not be more excited, man. So pumped about it. Good luck with fantasy drafts this upcoming weekend. I know a lot of people have fantasy drafts going up this weekend, Memorial Day weekend. Or is it Labor Day? Labor Day? Memorial Day. Now we got to look to make sure we don't screw that up to just in the future. It's Labor Day. September 5th, Monday, it's Labor Day. People are going to be drafting, hanging out, drinking, doing whatever. If you listen to the podcast, you're going to get some value. Just saying. All right. So, thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll catch you guys on episode 36 of the Phenomenal Fan Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Phenomenal Fan Podcast. Want more? Follow us on social media and subscribe to Patreon for exclusive content.